WrestleManiacs, Maniacs. This is the podcast. It's called WrestleManiacs. Adam, Donna, Indy, and Josh. Then now together forever and son. WrestleManiacs. This is the podcast. It's called WrestleManiacs. WWE, AEW, TNA, JPW. WrestleManiacs.
Hey there, WrestleManiacs. Again, it is Josh here live and in living color, here tonight to review WWE NXT from May the 7th, 2024. And what a show we had tonight. We had the NXT Women's Combine results, as well as Noam Dar stepping up to the title picture with Trick Williams, as well as a kidnapping angle at the end of the show. So join me tonight as I review live NXT's review. So again, let's just get started, WrestleManiacs. So tonight, what we started out with, again, as we've always said about WWE, we had a Wesley montage, basically talking about who Wesley is. So if you didn't know who he was to begin with, now you definitely know. An amazing superstar, was the NXT North American champion, one of the longest reigning NXT North American champions, and back in December of last year in 2023, had to give it up to a leg and back injury. Actually, apparently 3 discs were pretty messed up. And again, we weren't really sure if we were going to see Wesley after a while. And just last week at NXT Spring Break in Night 2, we saw his return after Obafemi successfully defended the NXT North American Championship against Ivar. So we get a montage showing, and then we actually go to Wesley watching that montage, and all the rest of the roster in the back hyping him up, and basically him coming to the ring. Again, as we talk about the new WWE Productions crew's value of following the wrestler from the backstage going out to the arena, which again is always an impressive shot. And pretty much this leads to Wesley's first match back versus Josh Briggs, who has also been trying to contend for the NXT North American Championship since Stand and Deliver. And about midway through the match, we actually get Ivar coming out to the stage and joining on commentary. So this match was pretty good. I mean, again, for Wesley and Josh Briggs having such a size differential, definitely we saw a lot of focus on Wesley's back from Josh Briggs, apparently, again, because he had reparative surgery on that back. So we saw a lot of backbreakers, a lot of things with his back. So, really a pretty good match for Wesley. And Josh Briggs, I think, is one of the dark horses. I'll be honest with you guys. Originally, I didn't really think too much of him, but he's definitely stepped out into his own. I don't know if he's training with somebody. Don't know if it's just him being around more, but I'm starting to like the Josh Briggs character a little bit more each and every week as we see him. So during the match, we have it to where Wesley and Josh Briggs are fighting on the outside. Ivar standing up, kind of trying to put his hands up like this, standing out of the way of commentary. And inevitably what happens is that we have it to where Josh Briggs is accidentally knocked into Ivar, knocking him down from Wesley type of drop kick. So Wesley actually picks up Josh Briggs, rolls him into the ring, hits his crazy, I don't even know what you call it, finisher, because it was just a crazy, guys, the best way I can say is like the Starship Pain, but even crazier than that. Basically a backflip into a bunch of flips and sidewinders into a pin. And he actually gets his win back. Josh Briggs actually loses to Wesley. So Wesley goes out of the ring, basically starts to celebrate, and we see Ivar and Josh Briggs actually get into it by the announcer's table. And of course, Wesley, not to be outdone and being the high flyer he is, decides to jump from the top rope to the floor onto Josh Briggs and to Ivar, knocking them both down, all of them sprawled out. And what we see is, of course, we know the NXT arena has kind of like a little, I want to say a raven's nest or a balcony, essentially. And we see Obafemi just looking on, just having a good time, laughing at the carnage he sees in the ring, knowing that all 3 challengers are going to destroy each other and hopefully soften up one another for whoever his challenger is. I think we should have a fatal 4-way, especially given that all 3 competitors have at least a reason. And I would dare say have a legitimate claim to fight for the NXT North American Championship. This has been one of, I would dare say, one of the underrated feuds, or at least stories from NXT here recently. Again, I didn't think much about Josh Briggs and Dijak originally. Same with Ivar. I thought it was just kind of a main roster band-aid. But you know what? I'm looking forward to the match with now Wesley in the mix, being able to fly and flip and flop everywhere. No disrespect to, of course, Mr. Lee. I definitely think that's going to be a very cool type of match. And again, I hope for a Wesley kind of looking across the ring, basically facing all the giants at Obafemi and Ivar, and also Josh Briggs as well. So definitely would love to see this sort of match. So again, we move on and we actually go back with Axiom and actually Nathan Frazier, the NXT Tag Team Champions, along with Tyson and Tyreek, as I'm going to call them from now on TNT, as well as Hank and Tank, as well as the No Quarter Catch crew comes in. Basically, they're all congratulating him, saying, look, you kept your titles, great job. And in come No Quarter Catch crew, basically talking to TNT, Tyson and Tyreek, saying, look, at least we didn't lose our main roster debut. Pretty much sets up a match for later in the night. So everybody leaves, leaving the Good Brothers to come in upon Axiom and Nathan Frazier, basically saying, hey, good job, guys, chasing off all the main roster guys. Kind of hinting that we're going to see a feud with them. And they say, that's too sweet. Put up the too sweet symbol. And they actually walk away. Don't too sweet them. I'll be honest with you. I was hoping for a Luke Gallows saying they're a bunch of nerds, but didn't get that. But definitely there's a feud brewing there between them two. And I think the Good Brothers may be on SmackDown. But again, as we know, the main roster draft apparently doesn't really matter because anybody can show up to NXT. So we may have another main roster tag team versus Nathan Frazier and Axiom, which again only serves to get them more over with the NXT crowd and the main roster crowd. So definitely not a bad thing at all. What we get next is actually kind of a montage, I should say, of the first ever women's NXT Underground match with Lola Vice actually picking up the win due to, again, Shayna Baszler putting Carmen Petrovich in a chokehold, basically costing her the match and distracting her. So we actually get to see Carmen Petrovich versus Shayna Baszler. This match was all right. Again, I can't say it really got out of first gear. I was excited for this match, definitely with Carmen having a black belt, and of course Shayna being who Shayna is and a legit UFC fighter, essentially. Again, it was all right. Shayna Baszler ended up getting a roll into a Karafuda clutch, and Carmen Petrovich ends up giving up. Again, not a bad match. I expected a little bit more, but again, Carmen's pretty green still. So again, there's potential there. I'm not really a fan, again, of the main roster guys and gals showing up on NXT because my understanding is the main roster is supposed to be locked. Again, I'm not sure if NXT is in that ruling, but still, it kind of is just a Band-Aid for something. And again, I think we need to have more talent. And NXT has enough talent that really, I hate to say it, we don't need, but maybe one main roster. If you're going to go with it, one female, one male, that's fine. But again, I feel that we're getting too many kind of crossovers here. But again, decent enough match, but Shayna Baszler wins, and I guess the right decision was made here. But again, I'm hoping that we get a return and get a really good match out of these two. What we have next is a backstage segment with Kalani Jordan and Fallon Henley, basically talking about she can't believe that Fallon Henley attacked Thea Hale after her match with JC Jane, and is just so put off and disturbed by the fact that Fallon Henley is so just a bad gal now. Basically, Fallon Henley, as she said herself, Fallon comes first. And she said, look, I'd like to, basically punch her in the face. And Fallon says, oh, really? You would? Well, why don't we just do this tonight? Why don't we talk about this tonight? Of course, they get into kind of a pull apart, not really a brawl, but they start talking. And the girls, usually the ones we don't know the names of, just random people in the backstage, pull them apart. I'll be honest, I kind of like that Fallon Henley has had a character change. Again, she's been kind of stale for a while. I mean, she's been the same character, really, since she was with Briggs and Jensen. And again, she tagged with, again, like I said, I think it's just stale. Again, I definitely am glad to see that she has changed her character. I think it's a good thing for her. And now hopefully she'll get over a lot more. So definitely not a bad thing. Kalani Jordan, I'm still kind of on the outs with. Again, she's not been seen too much in NXT. She's all right, but she is the girlfriend of Carmelo Hayes in real life. So we'll see if that has any influence. But again, decent enough setup for tonight's match between them two later on, and we'll talk about that. So what we have is this next results of the NXT Women's Combine results. The idea of this Combine is essentially the top 12 will fight into a tournament, who will then determine the 6 women who will fight for the NXT Women's North American Championship at Battleground in the UFC arena on June the 9th. Pretty unique aspect to this tournament. Again, little different. I'd say a little football-y, a little bit of basketball-y, but, definitely not a bad thing. We talk about that they're going to go let me start over. We have strength, we have speed, we have conditioning, And as well as we have another type of feature as well. 4 things that they're going to be judging them on and putting them in a bracket. So we have speed, and Thea Hale and Kalani Jordan actually leading the pack for that speed type of thing, a 10-meter dash, things like that. Again, it was all right. Again, a little confusing at first if you weren't watching last week, but again, we got them to at least joining in the top 12, at least as far as we know, in the speed category. What we get next is the no quarter catch crew, Bourne and Dempsey versus TNT. Again, Tyson and Tyreek. And what we get is there's no referee in the ring. And so Booker T mentions, hey, where's the referee? And all of a sudden, Luca from the D'Angelo family basically says, hey, the referee is not available at this moment, but they have a replacement referee, and that being Stacks. Now, again, if you haven't been following this story, what we have Drew Gulak, who apparently was accused, again, all backstage stuff. So again, nothing on television, mind you, but he was accused of apparently doing something to Ronda Rousey that was inappropriate. Again, now I think it was something to do with her drawstring on her pants. So WWE, in their typical style, kind of pulled him off of the road, pretty much pulled him out of the group. So to explain his absence, basically the assumption and the inference, I should say, is that no quarter catch crew basically paid the D'Angelo family or asked the D'Angelo family to take care and get rid of Drew Gulak, which explains his absence. But of course, no quarter catch crew being heels, they haven't paid. And pretty much the idea is that the D'Angelo family needs their payment. So this is why they interfered. This is why Stacks is now your referee. Pretty good match, I guess. Again, Tyson and Tyreek are fairly green. Impressive, definitely would say. Again, and I don't mean any disrespect in either way, but again, they remind me of Crime Time in the way that they dress. You've got the Ugg boots. Again, definitely not a bad tag team emulate. So don't get me wrong. It's not a diss. Again, I am just curious to see what their characters are. Fairly impressive height on a body splash. I believe it was by Tyson, if I remember correctly, the bigger, heavier set guy. Got some really good height on hitting a body splash. That was definitely amazing to see for sure. And again, we ended up having Stacks basically costing the match, punching, I believe it was Dempsey in the face, essentially a roll up 1, 2, 3. TNT essentially get their first main roster, or at least NXT, win over the no quarter catch crew. And of course, they're all upset, and we pretty much had continued this feud between the D'Angelo family and the no quarter catch crew. Again, say that 4 times fast. NQCC. So actually what we get, and something I really liked this interaction, was Ariana Grace meeting Chelsea Green. Now, again, the idea is basically them two are very similar in character a little bit in terms of how they talk, how they are very prim and prissy and proper and things like that. And Ariana says it'd be a great thing if Chelsea was NXT Women's Champion, essentially kind of just putting each other over, and Gigi Dolan in the middle of them, or Georgina, as she's now called, in the middle of them, basically just kind of shaking her head, not wanting to listen to it. Ariana says she's got a Michin problem. Chelsea says she's got a go win the NXT Women's Championship from Roxanne Perez. And Gigi finally just snaps after they're gone and saying, I can't take it. I've had enough of this. I'm out of here. So a fun little segment with Chelsea Green and Ariana Grace, two similar characters, at least in terms of their prim and proper prissiness, meeting together. So again, will there be a story there? I don't know, but I do definitely like that we had kind of this interaction between some more main roster characters. Again, the draft is still makes no sense how they're locked, but they're not locked for NXT. But again, this was something I'm like, all right, it's respectable enough. Which then this leads actually to a Roxanne Perez backstage interview basically saying, look, I beat Lyra Valkyria. I beat Tatum Paxley, sent them packing. Lyra's off to Raw. Tatum hadn't really been heard of since then, at least from what we've seen the last week or so. And pretty much Chelsea Green tonight, you're going to be sent back to Raw, and you're going to stay. Oh, I'm sorry, not Raw. Nobody likes her on Raw. Nobody likes her on SmackDown. She's going to send her back to SmackDown, and basically no one wants to see her in NXT ever again. So, typical Roxanne interview. Again, it is weird that Chelsea Green is technically a heel, but technically a de facto, I guess, babyface for the NXT crowd because she's a main roster character versus the heel Roxanne Perez. So, we'll find out a little bit more about that match, but I got to say, I was a little bit more impressed with Chelsea Green than I expected. But again, that's upcoming, so stay tuned. What we get is Ariana Grace versus Michin. Basically, this match is to kind of just, show dominance and essentially, hopefully, be able to affect the results of the top 12 of the NXT Women's Combine. And this is a pretty quick match. Michin basically gets the win, dominates Ariana Grace, really. hits the eat defeat, and Meechan's your winner. And again, we kind of just move on from here. Really, there wasn't much to this. I was expecting a little bit more, but again, it is what it is. What comes next after this is a sit down with Ridge Holland in the back, sitting with Thea Hale, basically saying that, glad he could help her out last week and that she reminds him of her daughter. Again, let me say that again. Ridge Holland tells Thea Hale, you remind me of your daughter. Again, for me, WrestleManiacs, this was so cringe. It was so weird. Now, again, I mentioned on a wrestling side, I kind of wonder if this is a new character edge of Creeper Ridge Holland. But again, maybe it's just truly that, Thea Hale's in his 20s and Ridge, I guess, has a daughter in her 20s. But I don't know. It was a very weird segment. Chase U walks up. I congratulates Thea on her win over JC Jane last week. And then here comes the Chaos Element himself. Lexis King interrupts, basically calls them losers. Thea gets upset, of course, and Duke says he's going to defend Chase U's honor and fight Lexis King later on this evening on this episode of NXT. So, again, serviceable enough. Chase U's always a good thing. Lexis King is always a good thing. Ridge is starting to seemingly interact with everybody. He was working with Shawn Spears at NXT Spring Break, and I guess we get no follow-up from that. And now the idea he's working with Chase U and Lexis King in the background. So, I don't know. Ridge Holland has a character. Again, the idea is that he's not really a heel, even though he ends up doing things that seem questionable. Again, I really didn't like the Ridge Holland Thea Hale reminds him of his daughter. But again, that's neither here nor there. I hope there's something coming from that. I'm hoping there's some weird romance angle. But again, who knows if WWE's going to really go that crazy. But serviceable enough, I guess. So then what we get next is the hyped Supernova sessions with special guest Trick Williams. Basically, the idea is what's in the envelope, and it's revealed that in the envelope, Noam Dar's foot was under the rope when he faced Trick Williams a couple of weeks ago. Basically, even though Trick got the win, Noam Dar's foot was under the rope and basically said, Trick, I want a rematch. And Trick's like, hey, man, you can have a rematch anytime you want, no problem. But then what we end up having is actually Trick Williams talking to Lash Legend saying, well, Lash, why don't you tell them what's up? Why don't you tell them what's really going on? And basically talks about, why don't you tell him you call me Trick Willy Wonka, again from that weird dirty candy sex talk from last week that they talked about Reese's and Kit Kats and all that sort of weird stuff. So basically saying they're in a relationship essentially. And as Trick's talking, instead of Lash calling him Trick, she goes, babe, I mean Trick. So again, there is the reveal that they're dating one another, which they are in real life, but it is bringing that kind of reality into the storyline type of NXT. And again, as Trick Williams is talking pretty much, Noam Dar gives him a spinning back elbow, a Judas effect, if you really will, knocks him out and grabs the NXT title, basically saying that now Noam Dar has stepped up to basically want to fight Trick Williams for the NXT title, and I'm all for it. Supernova, of course, himself has been a very weird character, very out there character. I remember a couple Halloweens ago, they were like part of the Scooby-Doo crew and went to a haunted house. Again, very, very strange, but you know what? I got to say, Noam Dar is one character that I would have never expected to stick around the main roster, and his comedy, his timing, his weird type of he's got this weird charisma that I'm actually not really upset that he's facing Trick Williams. Are there other people that could face Trick Williams? Yes. But if you're going to feed anybody to Trick Williams, Noam Dar is not a bad choice, especially given no one thinks Noam Dar is going to win. So let's just get that set up right now. But again, if you're going to have something, you're going to introduce Lash Legend as his manager. Eventually, I would think she's going to leave Supernova, or at least the metaphor. I don't know. Maybe she'll cost him the title. Who knows? We'll see. But, Noam Dar is not a bad choice. Again, he was great as NXT Heritage Champion. So I think this is their way of rewarding him for basically doing all the silliness, keeping the NXT Heritage Cup alive pretty much. So definitely not a bad choice, I would say. What we get next from there is an NXT Women's Combine result, with Jada Parker actually winning this segment for endurance, for like punching, jumping, things like that, endurance. Again, these are nice. Again, I can't really say I'm into this sort of setup. Again, if you're a sports fan, I guess this is a big deal. For me, I get it. They're getting the aspect of sports. I get that they're trying to kind of explain it. But for me, just it's all right. But again, I don't really see the point of these. But again, that's me. So again, if you have any comments or anything, let me know. I mean, again, maybe I'm missing something here. But Jada Parker wins this segment of, again, I believe it's endurance or conditioning. We then lead back to Natalia and Carmen Petrovich talking backstage. Basically, Natalia saying, look, I know you lost, but you got to find your edge. And basically, some rando dude comes up, basically saying, look, who cares about your loss? You're still a smoke show, basically saying you're still hot. She turns, kicks him in the head, and walks off. I guess the idea is that was her edge. It kind of reminds me of the DX segment from way back when Triple H was telling Shawn he lost his edge and he suddenly starts super kicking everybody in the hallway. I guess that was the idea here, that the fact that, she didn't like she was called basically a smoke show or a hot, let's just call it what it is, and the kicking some dude in the head for saying it. So I guess we're going to see a more aggressive Carmen Petrovich. If it leads to a more aggressive Carmen Petrovich, I understand. But again, it was a weird segment to kind of get that out of her. But who knows? Again, with Natalia by your side, you never can tell. Again, I do like this pairing. I do think it is a good pairing. So I'm hoping something comes out of it more. What we lead into next is Kalani Jordan versus Fallon Henley, our newly turned heel Fallon Henley. Match was serviceable enough. Again, I can't really say that it was anything to write home about. Of course, Fallon, goes over, gets the win. And this really is just trying to establish the fact that Fallon comes first. Even on that little towel that she puts on her shoulder now, it says Fallon comes first. And she wipes the camera like she's still an evil bartender, I guess. I guess that's the idea. Her family owns a bar, so she's technically a bartender / wrestler. Again, I really do like Fallon Henley, so don't get me wrong, but I'm hoping we're getting a little bit more away from the bar aspect, from the country girl aspect, from the hardcore country, let's just say, gimmick. So, again, serviceable enough. Again, Fallon Henley will probably continue her story with Thea Hill. Hopefully, that'll be a pretty good match. Hopefully, it will elevate both women. I kind of see Thea Hill as the next kind of coming to, maybe challenging Roxanne Perez, but maybe we'll get a triple threat between them. Don't know fantasy booking, but it seems like Thea Hill is really going to be on the next step up as rocketing up to the NXT championship. I hope so. So, again, not a bad match, but again, just to serve basically feeding Kalani Jordan to Fallon Henley's new heel character. What we get from here is no quarter catch crew basically pacing in the backstage. Essentially, Dempsey's upset about what happened earlier with Stacks costing them the match as guest referee, and basically says next week D'Angelo is going to get his shot at the NXT Heritage Cup. They're going to pay up, but essentially the question is, under these catch rules, who's he going to face? Is he going to face him? Is he going to face Miles Bourne? Is he going to face Damon Kemp? And what's really cool about this is this goes into a segment later on. So again, as silly as it is at the end, it makes sense. So pretty much they're upset with the D'Angelos. He's going to get his match next week, but again, the question is, who are you going to face? Because you never really know with the no quarter catch crew who you're going to face off with. So, well enough results. We get another NXT Women's Combine results, and we have Izzy Dame actually winning the strength competition with lifting weights and things like that. Again, segment was well enough. Again, kind of weird, I would say. Again, I understand it's a developmental territory. Again, I understand that, we're supposed to talk about training athletes and adding legitimacy. But again, guys, at the end of the day, we know it's professional wrestling. We know that this essentially is still, I would dare say, sports entertainment, but it's still professional wrestling. And the idea is that there is stories and characters. I don't really care about the NXT Women's Combine. I just care about the tournament, which we actually get the overall results of the top 12 in this tournament, who are the following. We have Sol Ruka, Thea Hale, Jada Parker, Brinley Reese, Meechin, Fallon Henley, Lash Legend, it's Ivy Nile, sorry for the misspelling, Izzy Dame, Kalani Jordan, Tatum Paxley, and Ren Sinclair. So of those 12 women, they're going to basically enter a tournament, basically a facing one another to determine who the 6 women are that's going to be challenging for the newly minted, the new first ever WWE NXT North American Women's Championship at June 9th at the UFC Arena for Battleground. So, again, I like that they're adding legitimacy. Maybe that's why they're doing it, because it's in the UFC Arena. Again, kind of silly, I still think, but not a bad field. Again, if I had to pick, and again, this is just my picks, but make sure to comment on your picks below as well. I think we'll get Sol Ruka, we'll get Thea Hale, probably Jada Parker, if I can say it correctly. Meechin, probably Fallon Henley, and Lash Legend. I would think those are the 6. Maybe take out Meechin, maybe for an upset for Tatum Paxley, maybe. But again, overall, not bad. For me, I would think the right choice to win would be either Fallon or Thea. I would think maybe Thea would almost get the title, and then Fallon basically ends up winning the championship herself. Good way to elevate her. So, again, I'm looking forward to it. Now that we know the final 12, essentially, we'll get the final 6 here in the next couple of weeks before the end of the month. Nick Jenkins, thoughts on Thea Hale? Oh, no, she's great. I mean, again, definitely I'm loving that her character is now acting more like an adult. She still does that kind of this type of thing and acts like a 10-year-old girl. Basically, it's had too much damn sugar. But realistically, you know, I do like her character development. I do like that she's basically acknowledging she's not a little girl. She's an adult. So I do like that aspect. Hopefully, she'll finally stop this type of thing because I'm not getting it. I never have. It just drives me crazy. But again, she's getting there. So definitely she's come a long way for sure. What comes next is Lexis King versus Duke Hudson, who we again seen Lexis King causing issues and calling Chase U losers backstage. Essentially, this match is serviceable enough. Essentially, the idea is that Ridge actually costs them the match, and Lexis King ends up getting the win here over Duke Hudson. So, again, serviceable enough. The idea is Ridge is accidentally causing problems, not meaning to, of course. Again, it is what it is. It's Ridge Holland. Again, there's maybe some sort of thing with Thea Hale. Do I like him with Chase U? Yes. I'm curious to see where this is going to go now. So hopefully they'll have a end in mind, hopefully. What we get next is Metaphor actually leaving, essentially, and running into Javon Evans, a young 19-year-old sensation. And Javon Evans basically tells them, oh, hey, look, I don't like what you did to Trick Williams. Mensa basically saying, what are you going to do about it, man? And we find out later that next week it's going to be Noam Dar versus the 19-year-old rising superstar Javon Evans. What's interesting, though, is we see that Lash Legend is actually missing from Metaphor exiting the arena. Again, they don't really want to talk about it. They ask, where's Lash? They're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So, again, as we probably presume that she's actually with Trick Williams right now, as he's probably being looked on by medical. We don't see this, but again, that's the presumption, the inference, essentially, from the fact that she's not with Metaphor as she's leaving. What we actually get as a follow-up I did not expect, but I really do like. It was a promo by Jasmine Nix, who is friends with JC Jane, basically talking about how Thea Hale basically busted up the nose of JC Jane in their match from Spring Break in Night 2. If you go back, you would actually see the footage where she's actually bleeding pretty profusely from her nose. And so it was a pretty bad thing. She actually had to have surgery on it. So basically, Jasmine says, you're not going to hurt my friend. I'm going to hurt you, Thea Hale, and I'm coming for revenge. So again, while I'm not sold so much on Jasmine Nix, I do like that the idea that, you know, you hurt my friend, I'm going to hurt you. So unexpected follow-up. Maybe this will play into a Fallon Henley type of thing. I don't know. But I definitely do give kudos to WWE for following up for the friend versus just all of a sudden JC's not there, Jasmine's not there. So there's going to be poor Thea. She's got a bunch of people after her. She's got, again, poor girl. She's got Fallon Henley that turned on her, one of her other best friends. And then we also have Jasmine Nix after her as well. So speaking of Thea Hale, we actually go backstage and she's upset that Lexis won. And Ridge basically apologizes saying, look, you know, I didn't mean it. You know, it wasn't supposed to happen. And, you know, they're like, just buy a center, no big deal. Until Riley's like, I don't really know. Are you sure that, you know, that's going to be all it is? And he's like, look, mate, I already apologized. If I need to earn your respect, I'll earn it. So a little bit of doubt from Riley, again, kind of stirring the pot a little bit with Ridge Holland. Is Ridge Holland really accidentally doing this? Or is Ridge actually causing problems on purpose? Kind of a undercover Lexis King in terms of causing problems and causing chaos and mayhem. So what this leads to is our main event, Roxanne Perez versus Chelsea Green. What I do like is they did have a little nod to the past of Chelsea Green before coming out, running into Robert Stone. They don't say anything to each other. She just smiles at him. He nods at her because, again, Von Wagner has been let go as a couple of weeks ago. And pretty much, but still Chelsea Green's coming out on her own. And this match was, how do I put this? For a Chelsea Green match, it was pretty good. I think Chelsea Green definitely has a lot more that we're not seeing on the main roster. This definitely showed. It showed kind of her mean streak, kind of showed her wrestling prowess. Not that I didn't think she had it, but, you know, again, when she's with Piper, really Piper Niven is the one that's really kind of doing most of the heavy lifting, I would say. Chelsea's kind of being the fodder. But we actually get Roxanne Perez actually hitting Pop Rocks and retaining her NXT Women's Championship. Again, serviceable enough. There's no real follow-up with Roxanne Perez on a new challenger. This is just kind of her getting a win over a main roster person and sending her off. And hopefully we'll get more of a follow-up. I kind of was expecting somebody to come out at the end, but nothing really came of it. So, again, was kind of odd. I don't want to say she was an afterthought, but they did focus a lot on the Women's North American Championship, which is fine. Again, understandable new title. But again, I would have assumed somebody would have come out as a challenger. I don't care if it was Shayna. I don't care who it was. Maybe it was like Heath Slater, another main roster comes after her. I don't know, but again, was Roxanne Perez won, and she's still champion. So great, and that's pretty much the end of that story. So we think. As we're leaving NXT, we actually see the D'Angelo family kidnapping Damon, Kemp, and Miles Bourne, beating the heck out of them, throwing them in the back of their SUV, shut the doors, get in there basically saying, Dempsey, or Sir Charles, as he calls him, basically see you next week. So really what the D'Angelo family did is eliminated Damon Kemp and Miles Bourne, the other two members of the no quarter catch crew with Charlie Dempsey, with the inference that next week it's going to be Charlie Dempsey versus Tony D'Angelo for the NXT Heritage Cup. Now, again, as they drive off, we actually pan to the background of a door opening as they drive off, and we see Charlie Dempsey holding the NXT Heritage Cup, basically looking around for his stablemates. Doesn't say anything, just looks around, and we fade to black. So that's the end of NXT. A little bit of a different NXT tonight. Again, focus again on the North American Women's Championship. Fine. Again, a little bit of movement for the no quarter catch crew versus the Tony D'Angelo family. Again, my assumption is the no quarter catch crew is the heel, and suddenly the D'Angelo family are still faces. Again, all well and good. Roxanne Perez beats a main roster person. Thea Hale, of course, continues her feud with Fallon Henley, as well as Jasmine Nix is after her. And, again, a pretty decent NXT show. Would I give it a 9? No. Maybe I would give it, I don't know. Let's say a 7.5. Again, not a great show. The main event was pretty good for Roxanne Perez and Chelsea Green for a Chelsea Green match. Again, no disrespect to Mrs. Green, but it definitely was something that I didn't expect from her to be good, but it wasn't great. It definitely was not what we saw at Backlash or maybe even last week. So good enough show. Again, I definitely can't wait for next week's to see what we're going to have happen. And again, tonight is going to be a show that probably I can't say will be talked about for a long time per se, but you know what? What I'd like to do is, if you can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, give your thoughts on the show, comment, at me at Twitter or X or whatever you call it now. Also on YouTube, follow, like, and subscribe to the channel. You can see me. Again, I'll try to pretty much comment on all Raw, SmackDown, and NXT reviews and the shows live tweeting during them at Russell M Podcast. So follow me there. Follow again A Plus Hero Report, as well as our gal Dotala _ on X for her Rangers of Wrestling YouTube channel. So WrestleManiacs, that is it. NXT for May the 7th is in the books. Again, we got some movement tonight. Hopefully we'll have a better show next week. I always kind of hope that NXT is going to be better and better as we go along. Sometimes I'm proven right. Sometimes I'm proven wrong. But I will see all of you guys and gals and you WrestleManiacs out there on Friday Night SmackDown, pretty close after, probably 30 to 45 minutes after SmackDown ends on Friday. And again, also remember that I'm going to be reviewing the King and Queen of the Ring, and that weekend as well. The next day, I'm going to be reviewing AEW Double or Nothing. Again, typically don't do AEW pay-per-views, but AEW Dynasty got me interested. Will that show make me want to watch the weekly shows, the 3 shows that they have? Maybe, maybe not. But again, you can always follow me here at Russell M Podcast, always on the YouTube channel for the WrestleManiacs podcast. And guys, gals, WrestleManiacs, you guys have a good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you guys on Friday for SmackDown. Have a good evening.